Jesus' great sorrow. All of us at some time in our lives have felt sorrow. Maybe it was because of the death of a parent or a relative. Maybe it was a friend such as Amy who died a few days ago. The shock, even if the death was expected, is always there. But the sorrow can be lessened by our friends and relatives who support us in this time of grief. And of course, we can pray and ask our Father Almighty to comfort us and help us through this time of sorrow. We are not alone. Other events can bring sorrow, such as the failure of someone who had promised to do something for you, but did not do so. One of your children is deliberately disobedient, and as a result gets hurt, either physically or emotionally. And this creates anger and also sorrow that, because of their disobedience, they have suffered the consequences of their actions. They need to be helped and comforted. The few verses from Mark's Gospel, which we have just heard, are short, terse even, and understate the great anguish and sorrow that Jesus was feeling. There are two things going on affecting Jesus. Great anguish on what he was about to face physically, and a heartbreaking sadness to do with his friends. He was to be deserted by both God and his friends in this hour of need. After the Last Supper, Jesus and the disciples went to Gethsemane, and he went a little way off to pray, taking Peter, James, and John with him. He asked them to keep watch whilst he prayed, and they said they would, but dozed off. The three seemed to have forgotten what Jesus had said to them only a few days before. In chapter 13 of Mark's Gospel, he wrote that Jesus said, "Therefore, keep awake, for you do not know when the master of the house will come, in the evening, or at midnight, or at cockcrow, or at dawn. Or else he may find you asleep when he comes suddenly. And what I say to you, I say to all, keep awake." Jesus goes off a little way to pray. It is a powerful pleading request that he be spared the coming trauma of beatings, humiliation, and a very long and painful death. He knew that this was the plan, but the human side of him was recoiling from the thought of what he was required to undergo. It is a very intimate prayer. He said, "Abba, Father, for you all things are possible. Remove this cup from me, yet not what I will, but what you will." Abba is the name that a child calls their father. It is a very personal form of address and shows Jesus' unique relationship with God as his son. Yet there was no response from God. So Jesus went back to the three disciples and, to his sorrow, he found them asleep. Jesus went back to the spot to pray the same prayer and got no response. Again, he found the disciples asleep, and he chided Peter. He said, "Simon, are you asleep? Could you not keep awake for 1 hour? Keep awake and pray that you may not come into this time of trial. The spirit is indeed willing, but the flesh is weak." So Jesus went and prayed for a third time and got no response. In Luke's Gospel, we read, "His sweat became as drops of blood falling on the ground. Such was his anguish and fear of what was to come." I wonder if at this time verses from Lamentations and the Psalms came to his mind. In Lamentations chapter 1, there is a couple of verses relevant to the moment. "Is it nothing to you, all who pass by? Look and see if there's any sorrow like my sorrow, which was brought upon me, which the Lord inflicted on the day of his fierce anger. And for these things I weep. My eyes flow with tears, for a comforter is far from me, one to revive my courage. My children are desolate, for the enemy has prevailed. Psalm 55 starts with these verses. Give ear to my prayer, O God. Do not hide yourself from my supplication. Attend to me and answer me. I am troubled in my complaint. I am distraught by the noise of the enemy because of the clamor of the wicked. For they bring trouble upon me, and in anger they cherish enmity against me. My heart is in anguish within me. The terrors of death have fallen upon me. Fear and trembling come upon me, and horror overwhelms me. And I say, oh, that I had wings like a dove, I would fly away and be at rest. Truly, I would flee far away. Jesus felt abandoned by his Father to whom he had prayed to daily, a Father who had heard his requests to deliver healing to so many people, to raise people from the dead, such as Lazarus, and was with him throughout his ministry. And now there is deafening silence. The prayer went unanswered, not just once, but 3 times. How would we feel if we had been working closely with our dad for many years, and then one day he no longer talks to us, refuses to hear us? Jesus, as a man, must have been heartbroken and so full of anguish, but with a heavy heart, he would fulfill his Father's wishes. Paul wrote in his letter to the Philippians, let the same mind be in you that was in Christ Jesus, who, though he was in the form of God, did not regard equality with God as something to be exploited, but emptied himself, taking the form of a servant, being born in human likeness. And being found in human form, he humbled himself and became obedient to the point of death, even death on a cross. Jesus obeyed his Father to his last dying breath on earth. Although Jesus had told his disciples that they would run away and deny that they knew him, and Peter had vehemently told him that it would never happen, the sorrow that he must have felt knowing that it would happen must have been great. They would abandon him and run away to save their own skins. So, with no support or comfort from his Father or his friends, he would go alone to his trial and death. Of the anguish and sorrow he felt, we cannot get close to understanding. There is a cost to following Jesus, especially if you live in a country where Christians are persecuted for their faith. However, for all of us, at the time of trial in our lives, wherever we live, may we all pray that we have the courage to say, not my will, but yours, as we do our best to follow Jesus. And when we are sorrowful, we will never be alone or abandoned by Jesus.